All right, good. Welcome to my webinar. It's so nice to have you here with me this afternoon. As you can see, we're going to discuss reading tasks from PTE Young Learners examination. Just a few things before we start. As you have heard, the session will be recorded. So you have the sign of the recording in your meeting controls. And if you have any questions, feel absolutely free to ask any questions. There is this Q&A panel, Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen in the meeting controls. So anytime you feel there's something not clear, you want to ask a question, type it there. I'm going to address all your questions after the session today. The session is going to be about 50 minutes and there is some 10-minute time to answer all your questions. The recordings will be available at the end of the webinar series. As you know, this is one of the webinar series which will finish on October the 9th. So after October the 9th, you will be able to download, if you have registered, you'll be able to download the recordings from the sessions. Today, we're discussing reading tasks. So the points that we're going to cover are, we'll start with the exam structure, very quick look at the exam structure to see how or what the reading tasks look like against the background of the whole examination. Then we will discuss all the reading tasks one by one, together with some strategies and some tips on how to prepare, how to get the young learners ready for the tasks. And towards the end, we will have a look at some resources, some material that where you can find it and how you can work with it. So let's start with the exam structure. As you remember, if you attended Bridget's session on Monday or my session yesterday, you remember that this is the examination that consists of 8 tasks. So there are 8 tasks and all 4 the skills are tested during the session, during the task, during the examination. So we have listening, reading, writing and speaking tested. And the reading tasks are actually tasks between 3 and 6. So these are the tasks that we're going to look at. So let's have a look at them. When we look at the structure of this exam and structure of reading tasks, we will see that the structure is a little bit different for different levels. So for level 1, the lowest level, first words, the reading tasks are all 4, right? So this is task 3, 4, 5, and 6. These are reading tasks. When I say these are reading tasks, I mean that these are the tasks where the score points go into the reading section in the skills breakdown in the performance report that the test takers receive after this examination. As you remember from Bridget's session, maybe every test taker receives a certificate together with performance report, which states how well the test taker did in particular skills. So for first words, the score points from tasks 3, 4, 5, and 6 go into this section reading in the performance report, which means that for first words, there are 50 score points to out of 100 that are counted as reading. So there's the maximum of 50 score points at first words that count as reading. Then later, like higher levels, level 2, 3, and 4, it's a little bit different because only sections 4 and 5, tasks, sorry, 4 and 5 count as reading. So for Springboard, we will have 25 score points that go to the section reading, as you can see, 10 and 15. The same for quick march, 25 points, go into the section of the performance report that is called reading, so it's counted as a reading skill. And for the highest level, for level 4, this is 15 score points, the maximum for reading skill in this examination. So this is what we're going to look at. These are the tasks that we are going to look at. These are reading tasks. This is what we regard as reading tasks. So let's have a look at task 3. Task 3, level 1. This is reading. The score points are counted as a reading skill, and the task is match question to answer. So there is a dialogue in which questions are matched to answers. The skill that is assessed, or sub-skill we could say, this task assesses the understanding of the structural relationship between questions and responses, plus it also tests the ability to recognize appropriate responses to questions in a simple dialogue. So there are two things. One thing is generally the relationship between question and answer, and another thing is, because that's a dialogue, these are not separate questions and answers, this is one complete dialogue, so it also assesses the ability to recognize appropriate responses within one simple dialogue. So the two abilities are tested in task 3, level 1. Scoring, well, it's very simple. As I said, the communicative skill is reading, so all score points go into reading in this breakdown of skills. There are 5 items. Each correct item is counted as 2, so the maximum score points is 10. So what about strategies? What about tips? What about the techniques that we as teachers, we can teach here to get our pupils ready for the examination? Well, yesterday I always started with the most important thing, probably, although very often neglected, highlight the importance of instructions, right? So this is PT Young Learners. This is one of the first, maybe the first formal test that they are taking. So they have to learn all those technicalities connected with doing a formal test. So the first thing, instructions, because there are some there is some key information in the instructions. So for example, for task 3, there would be this key information that they have to draw a line. They do not underline anything, they do not put any marks, they just draw a line. And these technicalities, as you know, are very important in formal tests. And also the another crucial piece of information is that there is one extra answer, so they won't find a match for a matching question. Let's say for one answer, they don't have to worry about it because one answer is unmatched, we could say. So highlight the importance of instructions, teach them not to neglect it, teach them to focus on the instructions when they are approaching the task. This is working with questions. This task 3, works with questions. So from the most basic thing that we have to teach is this differentiating between 2 different kinds of questions. Is that a yes/no question, or is that a WH, open question? Obviously, if this is a yes/no question, very often the answer to yes/no questions would be simply yes or no and some continuation. Yes/no are never the answers to WH, to open questions. So that will help, that will give some, well, a hint at selecting correct answers or eliminating the wrong answers. So the very basic division into 2 kinds of questions, teach them which is which, how they can recognize and what the consequences are in a dialogue of asking a yes/no question or asking an open question, what the answers can be. Another thing that we can get, and another thing from the questions and answers in this task, and another thing that we have to teach our pupils is, well, analyze the questions and answers, look at the vocabulary items. Maybe there are some similar words or maybe similar structures. As you can see here, for example, structure have got is reflected in the answer, or we have the words belonging to the same vocabulary area, like badminton and sport, or maybe animal and horses. Teach them to look at that this way. Maybe, and very often they can't find exactly the same words, but maybe there are some words from the same vocabulary group, vocabulary area, and that might be some indicator that that's the matching answer, because it contains the word that is from the same vocabulary group. So teach them to recognize these vocabulary groups, vocabulary areas, and then apply that to this task. Here, the words what is to be reviewed is the words to ask questions, right? They will give the crucial information, question words in open questions, because they will tell us which the answer might be, right? If we're asking when, so we will be looking in the answer for some expression of time. If we asking question, let's say how much, so quantities, and so on and so forth. So there is a range of question words to be practiced, to be reviewed. Here you can consult the language content document, the document that is attached to level guides for PT young learners. I'm going to talk about those level guides, but there is a language content document that specifies some items, some, for example, main structures that are tested in this examination, and there you can find, for example, question words that are tested at first words, because here we're discussing only first words. That's the task, the type of task that is present only at level 1 first words. Yesterday I mentioned that young learners is a group that is so totally different from adults, and there are some elements that are well, difficult to achieve with young learners, and you have to put some extra effort to achieve that. And one of these elements, these things, is like keeping their attention, like focused on something. So their attention span is so short, you all know that. Keeping them motivated, right? Giving them some real life task, because this is where they find motivation. It's hard for them to find motivation, or it's hard to give them motivation in a relatively artificial situation, which, well, a classroom is a relatively artificial situation. And in such a situation, it's not easy, as you probably know, to find motivation, to make them motivated. It's also the young learners are people who like moving a lot. They live in constant movement. You know that very well, that there is this energy that is emanating, I would say, in a class. So in order to manage all those needs and at the same time get them prepared, it's a good idea to gamify different exam preparation strategies. So for this task 3, where you have to match questions and answers, and the task that tests actually assesses the ability to recognize the relationship between questions and answers, there's a good idea for activity that practices exactly that, the relationship between questions and answers. And the name of this game or activity is Question Dice. It requires a little bit preparation in advance, but once you have prepared everything for the game, you can use it and reuse it from every now and then. The objects that you have created, and the objects are this is one object, this is the dice, because that's a kind of a dice game. So children sit in groups in a circle or in a group in a circle around a table or on the floor, if you prefer. One child rolls the dice, and there is a very specific dice, right? This is the dice that has a question word on every side. You can make this dice yourself, or you can make the dice together with your pupils. That might be also some fun for them, cutting out, gluing together different sides of the dice. So you prepare the dice from a template like that. You put the question words on different sides. And once you have this, as I said, once you have a dice or a few of them, you can reuse them a lot of times. So a little of preparation is necessary, but then you just have it. And this game gets them ready for task 3 here, the relationship between questions and answers, but that's also a game that prepares them for speaking activity, which is task 7, board game. So it is quite universal, right? You can use it quite a lot, and you can use it a few times in the same course because, well, this kind of practice can be apply to the classroom many times. So they sit around the table, one child rolls the dice, and when the dice or the child has rolled the dice, they have to ask the question from the top side of the dice, right? For example, here the top side is "Are you?" So this child who has rolled the dice asks a question, "Are you?" and has to finish the question and asks the question to another child. Once the question has been properly asked, right, or correctly asked, and you should monitor that, the dice is handed over to another child, and so it goes around the table. The child who has been asked the question has to answer that. And after the answer, rolls the dice again and asks a question to another child, and so it goes. You set the time limit, let's say 2 minutes, 5 minutes, it's up to you. And when the time is over, the child who is holding the dice loses the game. Right, so nobody wants to lose the game, so everybody wants to get rid of the dice, so they roll it very quickly. They are trying to ask the question and answer the question as quickly as possible, so that to get rid, so that they can get rid of the dice. That's the idea. And by doing that, they practice this question answer, the relationship between question and answer. If you monitor and you tell them, no, that's an incorrect answer, try once again, they will be trying and finding the correct match. So they will be finding the relationship between question and answer. So that's an idea to gamify the exam preparation classes or exam preparations, teaching exam strategies. Task 4. As you remember, task 4 is exactly the same at every level, right? So I'm showing one of the previous slides again. As you can see, this is match utterance for every level in task 4. The only thing that is a little bit different is the number of score points, the maximum number of score points, which is 5 at breakthrough, the highest level. So that's the task we are going to discuss right now. And for all levels, this is matching utterance to a picture. So as you can see, we have some sentences, some utterances that are to be matched to pictures. This assesses the ability to recognize simple functional use of language in social situations familiar to young learners, right? So these are not some theoretical situations, these are the situations they can come across in their lives. So functional language, some characteristic social situations, this is what is tested here. Scoring is, again, quite simple. All points go into the section reading in the skills breakdown. So there are 5 items, and each item is worth, each correct item is worth 2 or 1 point. So there are 10 score points in levels at 1, 2, and 3, and 5 score points at level 4. Strategies here. Obviously, we're starting with the importance of instructions. And again, the instructions say very clearly, draw a line. So do not write the sentences in the speech bubbles, do not put crosses, no, draw a line. If they neglect that, if they do not read the instructions, well, there are some chances that they may make a mistake. And there is one extra sentence, something they should also know, just not to get stressed out that they can't find a match for one sentence. So instructions are always important, always highlight the importance of instructions. These task works with pictures, right? So there will be a lot of similar, let's say, tips that you can give to your pupils as yesterday when we worked with pictures when discussing listening tasks. So analyze the pictures with them, teach them some set of basic questions that they should ask themselves before they start actually even reading the utterances, reading the sentences. First, teach them to analyze pictures and ask themselves 3, 4 basic questions about the pictures. So what do you see in the pictures? All those objects that you can, they can see, like, I know, for example, they can see a painting here, right? There are some clouds, it's raining outside. So there's a bed, a lamp, just quick analysis of pictures. What do you see? Who do you see? Like two girls and a boy. What is happening, right? So what are they doing? One girl is pointing at something. They are playing tennis. So a set of basic questions that they should, well, just even memorize and quickly ask themselves before they actually even read the optional utterances. In this task, it's very important that they pay attention to some small details. Just to show you what I mean, in this picture, we have two girls, but it's very important which girl is holding the cup and which girl is speaking, actually, because, well, we have two utterances here that could be used in this situation, which is no thanks, I don't want another one, and this drink is for you, have some. So if they do not properly identify the situation, right? So who is speaking, who's holding the cup? Oh, so it's easy to like skip it. It's easy to neglect it. Like we have a situation by a table, right? They're eating something, having, I know, lunch or breakfast together. And it's easy to neglect these tiny details, who is speaking and who's holding what, so they can easily make a mistake and choose no thanks, I don't want another one, which is actually for this one, obviously this girl holding the cup is giving the cup to another girl. So this those tiny details might be very important. Teach them to analyze that, and well, obviously first analyze these details with them and show them how they can, well, matter, how much they matter actually in the correct answer. For this task, especially for lower levels, level 1, 2, review with them, demonstratives, all those this, that, those, these, which is plural, which is singular, because that might be reflected in the pictures, and there will be a lot of sentences that use those, especially levels 1 and 2. Imperatives, as you can see, we have always there are some imperatives here. Here we have let's go, don't put, so review that, because imperatives will always be here, because imperatives are well, an important element of our social or functional language in everyday life situations. Prepositions of place, where things are, and they will also appear very often at lower levels. So these are those elements especially to be reviewed for task 4, with especially lower levels. Task 4 is the task that, well, from my experience, from my conversations with my pupils, is the one that is the favorite, because it's like a comic book, a comic strip, something they're used to, like looking at speech bubbles. So it's like engaging, I would say. And comic strips or comic books is something that most of them like. And I would say that the way of gamifying exam preparation would be, one of the ways would be using comic strip creators. If you Google comic strip creators, you will find hundreds of different, maybe not hundreds, but at least tens of different creators available online. Some very specialized paid services, but there are a lot of services or websites that are free of charge, in which you can create your own comic strips. Typically, they look like that. So you have different options. The three basic options are: you choose the scenes, you choose the characters, and you choose the speech bubbles or textables, it's called here. And also you have some other elements that can appear in the scene. So you decide what you want in the picture, so what scene you want. You decide on the characters you want. The characters, for example, in this example, are divided into some categories like adults, teens, kids. So you can very easily create your own comic strips here. I mean, the strip that you can see in your screen, well, it took me maybe not more than 10 minutes, maybe even less than 10 minutes to prepare it. So you just draw things to the scenes like the characters. You can leave the characters static, or you can change the position of characters. So it's very, very intuitional. It's very easy to use. You don't need any specialized knowledge. And once you have that, you can print it out, for example. Or you can, well, you can ask and give them the address of such a place, of such a website, and you can ask them to create their own comic strips. Or you can print out. The way I do it, for example, very often, is I print out something like that with empty speech bubbles, and then I ask them to complete the story, for example. And they work in groups like pairs, groups of 3. That's set for homework, and when they come back with that, we run some kind of competition, whose story is the funniest or the best, whatever, whose story they like the most. You can also ask them to create their own stories, like you give them the topic, like John is buying trousers, and you ask them to make a comic strip of 3 scenes in which they show John buying trousers, and they will be forced to use a lot of functional language that you use in shops, for example. So there are a lot of ways of using that. They will love it, because this is their this is what they, if they read anything, they very often read comic strips, comic books. So this is somehow natural for them. So just Google comic strip creator and you'll find a lot of possibilities. If you haven't yet worked with comic strips, well, that's a very nice kind of activity. Task 5, level 1. As you can see, task 5 is different for level 1 than for levels 2, 3, and 4, right? So for level 1, it's match word. For higher levels, it's gap fill. So we are going to look at task 5 for level 1. Task 5, level 1, is matching word to picture. So as simple as that. A list of words on the right and a list, let's say, of pictures on the left, and they simply match one to another. This is the task that assesses the ability to recognize commonly used nouns. As simple as that, just commonly used nouns. yes, this is level 1, right? So that's why this is as simple as that, because we're discussing here first words, level 1, which is pre-A1 in Common European Framework system. Scoring, very simple. Again, all score points go to reading section of the skills breakdown. There are 8 items. Each correct item is worth 2 points. So there are there's a maximum of 16 score points in this task. Strategies for this task, level 1. Look at the instructions. Yes, exactly. That's the first and foremost strategy. Again, you have to draw a line. You don't do anything else. You don't mark the pictures. You don't underline the sentence, the words, but you just draw a line. And there are 2 extra words. They have to read it. Teach them to read it, because otherwise they might, well, for example, miss the fact that 2 words are extra, and they might be trying to, well, find a match for the words. Here, it's crucial that you work with the vocabulary list. Vocabulary list, every level, for every level, there is a vocabulary list available. The vocabulary list is the list of items that are used by item writers, by the authors of the examination when they are preparing particular tasks. And the words for this task, task 5, level 1, are taken only from this vocabulary list. Just as you can see here, I've just taken, or well, cut out the first, the beginning of the table, and you can see 3 elements like a frog, chair is taken from this vocabulary list, bell has been taken from this vocabulary list. So incorporate the vocabulary list. The vocabulary list is available on the website. It's available, it's attached to level guides that will be included in the goodie bag. That you will be able to download some goodie bags containing material from our webinars. So there will be also level guides with the vocabulary list, but obviously you can download that from the website. So incorporate the vocabulary list in your teaching. So look through it, ask yourself the question, are there any vocabulary items that I haven't taught, that haven't appeared in my course book yet? So is there anything I should add to my teaching? Obviously, consider vocabulary areas. There are also vocabulary areas. This is also included in the language content in the document accompanying the vocabulary list. So the vocabulary is divided in some areas like simple colors, nouns for family members, numbers, house. So consider that also while teaching the vocabulary, and look through the vocabulary, the areas that appear in the examination. Another idea for some activity, for some game, to gamify the preparation process, memory game. I hope you all know the idea for memory game. It's like the best way to gamify preparation for task 5, because it is exactly like a memory game here. Memory game, you know, this is this game in which you have a set of cards in front of you, and you can uncover. These are covered cards. You can uncover 2 of them at a time. If they match, you get a point. If they don't match, you put them back face down, and the game continues. So this is what I mean by memory game. There are, again, hundreds, maybe not hundreds, but tens of memory game creators available online. I'm just showing an example of one of them, but obviously if you Google memory game creator, you'll find a lot of them. Most of them will be for printouts, like preparing memory game that you later print out, cut out, and play in class with cards, with real cards. But there are some game creators which can be played online, for example, which is useful if you are doing any distant teaching right now. So, for example, these creators work very simple manner. You input the name, the word. You input or you upload the picture for this name. You take these elements. I mean, the words for the game you take from the vocabulary list, as you can see, pencil. It's here. You prepare the pairs of cards, and what you get, you can get in this creator that I'm showing, you can get an individual website, right? Actually, internet address, as you can see here. So after slash, there's my name, Camille, where your pupils can play the game. So you can set that for homework, or as I said, if you do some distant learning, so you can easily get to this game, and they can play alone or with somebody. So this can be played online. But you can also find creators that will help you to prepare cards, print out cards. So perfect game for preparation, because this is exactly what is assessed in this task. In this task, the skill that is assessed is ability to recognize commonly used nouns. And this is exactly what we are doing here by matching the name, pencil, with the picture of a pencil. So this is what is happening in the game. Task 5 and task 6, gap fill. Once again, a quick look at the table. As you can see, for levels 2, 3, and 4, the activity in task 5 is gap fill, and there's the same kind of activity in task 6 for first words, right? So this is what I'm going to look at. I'm going to look at gap fill, which means task 5 for levels 2, 3, and 4, and task 6 for level 1 first words. So let's have a look at gap fill, task 5 and 6. Well, you fill gaps right here, but the kind of gaps and the kind of fill, let's say, will vary from level to level. So for the lowest levels, level 1 and 2, that's a simple gap fill in which you just match or you find the words in the box provided, right? So they choose from the options here. So there is just matching the correct word to the correct gap. So this is the same for first words and springboard. Level 3, quick march, it's also gap fill, but what they do, there's also a box of words, as you can see, but when you look at the box, you will see that these are verbs only. So what they have to do, they have to complete the gaps with the correct past forms of the verbs provided in the box. So that's level 3, and level 4 breakthrough, the gap filling, is without any options provided. So they have to come up on their own with the correct word to complete the gap. So this is a gap fill activity, but for every level, it's a little bit different. So, well, the strategies will also vary from level to level, because there's a little bit different activity involved in at particular level. So what it assesses, this task, basically the ability to understand a text, and it assesses knowledge of vocabulary and grammar and context. For quick march, level 3, it additionally assesses the knowledge of past tense forms. So this is what we're looking here. These are the sub-skills that we're looking here. Scoring, again, very simple. All score points go into reading section of the skills breakdown. There is different number of items. The lowest level has 7 items, 7 gaps. Levels 2, 3, and 4 have 10 gaps. And the score points for level 1, it's 14. Level 2 and 3, this is 15 score points. I'm talking about the maximum number of score points. And level 4, it's 10 score points. The strategies here, task 5 and 6, gap fill activities. Instructions, right? Again, instructions are important. Highlight the crucial pieces of information in instructions. So for level 1 and 2, use the words in the box. So the words are there. They don't have to think or they don't have to come up with their own words. The words are there, and you do not need all of them. So task level 1, there will be 3 extra words. Level 2, there will be 1 extra word. When this is quick march, the very important piece of information is that this is past tense. Right, so for quick march for level 3, they have to remember, and it's in the instructions, so that's why this is important to teach them to read it, that they put the verbs in past tense, not the verbs as they are, but they decide what the verb is, or which is the verb missing in the gap, and what the correct past tense form of it is. And for the highest level breakthrough, the important piece of information is that there is just one word in each gap, right? So no option to put 2 words. So this is all included in instructions. That's why reading instructions is an, well, very useful habit, I would say, the habit that you have to teach, especially at lower levels. As you remember, this task assesses the ability to understand a text. So that's why before they start doing anything here, it's very important that they read the text and they get the idea what it is about. So before finding matches, before finding words, teach them to read the text with them and ask questions. Who is in the text? What's it about? What kind of text it is? Is that an email, or is that a note, or anything else? So anything that, any additional information that you can get by reading the text with gaps as they are. So before matching, read a text. What is it about? Then, when you start analyzing the gaps for lower levels, level 1 and 2, where you put, there is a set of different words in the box, analyze the gaps with them and teach them to recognize if they need a noun, a verb, an adjective, a pronoun. For example, if you have this gap 3 and 5 here that starts with a pronoun, his and her, there's no noun after that, after the gap. So most probably we will be looking for some noun for a thing, most probably, in the set of words below. So teach them to recognize this sentence structure. This is quite rigid in English, right? So every word has its place in a sentence, and show them how it works. So review pronouns, review verbs, verb to be, review word order in a sentence. These are the things that will be especially useful for this task at levels 1 and 2. Higher levels, level 3 and 4, well, level 3, obviously they have to find the correct form of the verbs. So before they start putting the verbs, and so after they have read the text, after they have got the idea of what the text is about, and they start looking at the verbs, teach them to go through the verbs and quickly analyze if these are regular or irregular verbs. Later on, when they have put words into the gaps, teach them to reread the gaps, check for spelling mistakes. There's always a possibility that they will find some spelling mistakes. And remember, there's just one word per gap, especially for level 4 breakthrough. They have to remember that. Another gamifying idea, here I'm showing you sitewords.com website that is very useful for preparing different games. But again, right, there are a lot of places like that. I mean, this is one that I use, and to me it seems very, very simple. It provides some templates which you use to create your own games. And here we're talking about snakes and ladders games. That is very good game for practicing, for example, past forms of verbs. You very quickly, if you go to this website, you can very quickly put verbs from the vocabulary list into the template, and the result you get is the board for snakes and ladders. Well, I assume that you know the games. Obviously, snakes take you down, ladders take you up, and the idea is to get from start to finish. And you can add this element of correct past forms here. So once the player lands on a square, lands on a field, they have to give the correct verb form. If they can't, they have to move back. if they can, they stay in the field where they are. So you can very, very quickly prepare such a board. You can print it out just minutes before your class, for example, because this is really very simple with this website. But again, as I said, there are a lot of websites that help you prepare games like that. So that's it about the tasks, particular tasks. We've discussed task 3, 4, 5, and 6, 4 different kinds of activities that are reading activities in the examination. Now, a little bit towards the end of our meeting, a little bit on the resources available. So the first and foremost, the most important resource is the PTE Young Learners Guide. So for every level, there is a guide available. These guides will be included in the goodie bags after the series of webinars. You can also download them from PTE Young Learners website. Why are they so important? Because there you will find this language content document that I mentioned. So this language content provides you with the, well, some elements of language that are tested in the examination. So areas of language use, vocabulary areas, main structures, topics covered in the examination. So you find this language content there, and this is very important that you are aware of what is tested at particular level, and you can incorporate this knowledge into your teaching, into your classroom. There's this vocabulary list that I have mentioned a few times today, very important for some tasks, especially important, like task 5, where they match a noun to a picture. So the nouns are taken only from this vocabulary list. Or task 5, quick march, where they have to complete the correct form of the verb. So verbs are taken only from the list. So it's all in this level guides. And in the guides, every task is very precisely described. So all we've been talking here today, you can find the guides, very detailed information on what you do in every task in the examination. So it's all in the guides. If you go to the website, you can download a lot of past papers and use them in your classroom for some exam preparation activities. There are also past papers available in editable form. So that means that you can send the past papers to your pupils, and they can complete PDF documents. You don't have to print them out, actually. They can complete PDF documents. So these are editable PDF documents, and they can send them back to you completed, for example. So something that might be very useful during the COVID-19 situation, where some of you might be doing some distant teaching. And course books. You can find plenty of material in course books, obviously, exam preparation material. I want to focus on TeamTogether, a new course book series from Pearson. Well, I'm focusing on it because it's been carefully designed to help teachers who are working with the pupils towards the PTE Young Learners examination. So, for example, you will find in the course books a lot of tasks that reflect exactly the type of tasks from the exam, like matching questions and answers, the stories that contain a lot of functional language. So those picture stories like comic strips I mentioned for task 4, where they match utterance and a picture, matching and now commonly used nouns to their names, a lot of activities like that, or completing gaps, gap fill activities. So there are a lot of activities that would directly practice the same strategies as in the examination. But this course book also contains some sections that are especially useful for exam preparation. Every unit contains the section called skills, where you can practice different skills. For example, we're talking about reading, so every unit focuses on practicing the skills, and you will find some material for practicing reading reading in every unit here. There's also a section in every unit called English in Action. That is especially useful for this functional language. You'll remember task 4, where they have to identify functional language, and there will be a lot of functional language in these sections. Like, for example, here it's asking for a price, and a lot of expressions, a typical expression in a shop situation, which can be later tested in task 4 PT Young Learners. As I said, and I also mentioned that yesterday, this is a book that has been very carefully designed to reflect the language content for the examination, PT Young Learners examination. Yesterday I showed you how well it reflects the topics, vocabulary. Today a little bit about grammar, right? That the main structures tested at first words is, for example, this, that, is this, is that, and we have demonstratives as a grammar point in the book, or I know question words that I mentioned, what, where, what color. We have question words in the book, have got structure, right? So if you go through the contents of the book, you will see that it's really very carefully designed to reflect all language content tested in the examination. So as I said, it's carefully correlated with the examination. Every level of the book has a correlating PT Young Learners level. Like level 1 is first words, level 2 it's springboard, 3 it's quick march, 4 it's quick march and breakthrough, 5 is breakthrough. So it is really useful for your exam preparation classes. It's also accompanied, TeamTogether is accompanied by top tips and practice. This is a book that contains the material specifically for PT Young Learners preparation. So there you will find some strategies for the young learners. You will find a lot of tasks, exercises directly preparing them for particular parts of the examination, particular tasks in the examination. There are also obviously past papers in the book available. So there is a lot of material for TeamTogether that you can use to get your students ready for PTE Young Learners test. That brings me to the end of our meeting today. If you have any questions, I've seen a few questions. I mean, I've seen the question in chat, so I'll check it in a moment. If you have any questions still, right, that you haven't asked that today, you want to contact me, obviously feel free to do that. I'm always happy to get emails from you. Well, share my experience, so you can use my email address that is available in the screen. And this is it. Let me have a look. Q&A. No questions in Q&A. And I'm checking chat. Right, no questions. So, if that's clear, I think we can call it a day, and I invite you to Bridget's sessions where she's going to discuss speaking and writing. Bridget, over to you.
Thank you, Camille. Thank you for the last 2 days on the listening and reading skills. So tomorrow I'll pick up on speaking. So we have a session at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, or again at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, if that's a more convenient time. Do remember, even if you're not able to attend, that if you register, you will automatically receive the recordings of the sessions, which will be made available to you together with the online goodie bag after the 9th of October. So I look forward to welcoming you tomorrow, and just to wrap up and say thank you, Camille, for joining us in this round of webinars. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bridget. Bye-bye.